Chris Stamey covering Brian Wilson on his new album, Anything is Possible. We caught up with Chris in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to talk about the new album and his relationship with the music of Brian Wilson.
Don't talk, put your head on my shoulder.
Well, you know, I think we both connected with elders in that Gershwin meant a lot to him, and same here. And you know, of course, he was influenced by the Four Freshmen, which was,
Right.
and the way I'm also influenced by them is the fact that the Four Freshmen, there were four of them, and they were often singing four different notes, so the chords were not simply tertiary, not simply the first two thirds. They were a little bit richer chords, and that
Right.
brings you into a landscape where you have different ways to resolve, or you can have a little bit more interesting harmonic palette to move in.
Right.
I was exposed to Brian Wilson, as best I remember, from my friend Peter Holzapfel, who we were in a blues group together in junior high, and he was playing like Michael Bloomfield and Peter Green, but he played me this record, and I remember exactly in his living room across from the church, and he's playing me this record, and it's talking about brush your teeth like crazy and my favorite vegetables, and I thought, this is some weird stuff, and that's my earliest memory of the Beach Boys. I mean, I had heard things on the radio, I suppose, but
Right.
Peter Holzapfel was my gateway drug.
Cool. And speaking of the radio, I think I read in some blurb somewhere that this record, Anything is Possible, is kind of somehow associated with what you heard on the AM radio in the late 50s, early 60s, that kind of thing. Is there any truth to that?
Well, after the fact, I realized that seemed to be what was happening.
Right.
I'd written, there was a song on there called Meet Me in Midtown that was somewhat inspired by Tony Hatch's song Downtown, where he mistakenly thought he was in downtown. He was actually not. He was in Times Square.
Meet me in Midtown after the working day is through. Meet me in Midtown along the empty avenues. I know a place where we can chase away our blues. Meet me in Midtown. Meet me in Midtown.
And I was also not necessarily on AM radio, although I was hearing Chet Baker some on AM radio at the time. But
You were listening
my parents
to some interesting stations.
What?
Because I said you were listening to some interesting stations. I think you and I are of a similar vintage, and I don't think I ever heard Chet Baker on AM radio.
Did I only hear him in my mind? Maybe you're right. But I would hear the American standards my parents played. So that was also
Right.
part of my listening, you know. But I mean, radio seemed it was definitely more varied, you know, trailer for sale or rent or Ico or, you know,
Yep.
all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, you'd hear James Brown and Johnny Cash and the Beatles and the Stones and
Yeah, all
whatever
except
else.
it wasn't curated nationally like it is now
Yeah.
in America.
Yeah. Do you remember the first song that hit you on the radio that kind of connected with you?
No, I don't, but I do remember hearing Manhattan Tower by Gordon Jenkins, which was a radio play of
Right.
a kind, and that really seemed kind of like a wow. You know, it's. I mean, we all love movies, but there's something about a radio play or a radio musical where you can really melt into it.
Okay. Sounds like an early concept album.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of crazy. Gordon Jenkins was one of Frank Sinatra's arrangers.
Right.
You know, if Sinatra wanted a certain thing, he went to Nelson Riddle, but you know, he would go to Gordon Jenkins for a different approach.
Gotcha. So Anything's Possible, the album, when did it start taking form in your mind?
Well, I wrote most of the songs actually just on paper in 2023, and then started woodshedding them with the main rhythm section on the. We go over to the rehearsal rooms at the music building here at the university and run them down and check out different tempos and keys. And then I went out to California and I'd written some arrangements for them, and we played them through with the Wild Honey Chamber Orchestra, which is a group of people from the Brian Wilson Band and from the Bangles, and kind of like a group of melody loving LA folks. And that was how it kind of kicked off. Then, of course, the actual recording was a longer process, but we got a lot done in one day in the studio, and then I worked off that. And it got interrupted by the tour with. I made a couple of records with a band called the DBs in the
Sure.
early '80s or late '70s, and we did a
I
tour
have the
last year.
albums.
Oh yeah, you got them.
Yes, indeed.
Did you get those from in Rochester or?
Oh yes, at the great
Excellent.
at the House of Good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I was right in on all, and not only that, I found these in my collection as well, so they're
Oh, cool.
pretty cool to
Yeah,
have.
I'm not even
And,
sure I have a copy of the Chris Bell record anymore, but
oh dear, yeah, it was great because you go into House of Guitars and Greg Prevost, who was the guy behind the counter at the 45s, he was also the lead singer of the Chesterfield Kings. You'd go in and ask him what was happening, and he'd just say, "Buy this, buy this, buy this." And
yeah,
he was that guy, you know.
yeah. And we miss that guy. I mean, there's
Yeah,
not enough of
yeah.
them anymore.
I mean, I guess, some people it's a similar thing, when things are recommended to you on whatever platform or app that you do on, but it's not quite the same, is it?
Yeah, I guess in New York we had a guy named Bleecker Bob, but it was more like
Oh, yeah.
he was just going to yell at you. But
Yeah.
he did have good taste in what he brought in.
Right. Yes, I made a trip down to Bleecker Bog because Rochester, 8-hour drive from New York City, and me and another
yeah.
record collecting buddy drove down there and went to
Wow.
CBGB's and then went to Bleecker Bob's. It was great. Saw the Ramones. Can't beat that. Anyway, but back to the record here. So did you have the songs kind of written as a whole, waiting to be recorded, or did they come together kind of more organically than that?
Most of them were written. I usually can write a song in on 2 or 3 pages. I just notate the melody and write down the chords in kind of a jazz shorthand language, and
Right.
and then I put it in the pile on the piano.
Right.
There were a few. I think the last song to be written was "Leaves in the Wind," and then "Anything Is Possible" would be right before that. And the record was really taking on quite a crooner cast,
Yeah.
and but then I did some shows opening for the Lemon Twigs, and they're bundles of energy and precision. They're really great players, and but they were really having a lot of fun with electric guitars, and it kind of reminded me that I could
Yep.
have fun too.
You can turn it up a little bit if you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned melody a few times. Are you a melody guy, a harmony guy? Some people are more about the beats. Do you think in those terms as to what appeals to you mostly, or what gets you set off on something?
Well, I mean, I have a theory that when I answer questions like that, or when any songwriter answers questions like that, they're somewhat making it up, because when they're actually
Okay.
writing the song, they're somewhat zoned out, or it's
Right.
maybe if you subscribe to the bicameral brain theory, it's kind of right brain, it's kind of in the zone, and then you come out of it and you try to explain yourself, and you remember parts of it, but not everything.
Right.
Maybe a better response to your question is yes, melody.
Okay.
I've done a few interviews for this, and I find myself getting up on a soapbox where, I don't want to sound like the old guy waving his stick and saying, "Oh, you crazy kids, get off my lawn,"
Yeah.
But I do
I hear
think
you.
that um, there's been a lot of songwriting has become letting a chord progression dictate a melody, whereas there's a way to go where the melody is shaped by the chords, but it's really the melody is pulling the cart. And
Right.
I'm not saying anything is right or wrong, but yeah, my style would be I try to do everything together. I mean, I try to do words and melody. Usually, I have an idea that is uh, incoherent that is in my head for a couple of days, and then if I can wake up early enough and nobody's around me, I can bring some song to life from that.
Right. Right. Okay. And are you? I'm getting the feeling maybe you studied a lot of music. Do you study a lot of music theory throughout your career, or especially in your formative years?
Yeah, I mean, well, we all have regrets, and
We've had a
we were
few.
given a choice in high school of taking shop, learning
or
woodworking, or
or home
music
ec.
theory. We had a great music theory teacher in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and it's unbelievable now because in America the arts are on the run. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I find it fascinating. Honestly, I by the time I got to college, I was better at music theory than I was at actually understanding what my ears were hearing.
Right.
It took me a while for my uh, hearing comprehend. I mean, now I can hear what the chord progressions are pretty close. I don't have perfect pitch, but back
Right.
then uh, it was more uh, notes on a chalkboard. But yeah, I,
Right.
I, I know some stuff about it. I mean, I've really tried to learn. I knew a little bit about Bach and the classical approaches and mid-century modern stuff when I was growing up, but I've really tried to learn the jazz language a little bit because it's different. It's still music, but it's a different kind of shorthand and a different kind of approach. And so I guess in the last 6 or 7 years, um, had Branford Marsalis come in the studio. I've just been around a lot of players who speak that language now.
Gotcha. Yeah. You have a song called "After All This Time," which is kind of jazzy and almost like cocktail music. Tell me about that a little bit.
I don't know why I should think of you, but I do. It catches me by surprise out of the blue. I might be strolling down the street without a care in my mind. Then suddenly you are there after all this time.
Well, it's in a genre called the torch song, and it's
Oh, yeah.
it's like painters often paint a vase of flowers. I mean, it's a box you can look into, and maybe every painter's picture of that vase of flowers is different. But um, so I think it's not. I wouldn't say cocktail as much as I mean the song itself is um, in kind of standard 16 bar and uses those chords somewhat, but I think it has good elements about it. I like the way it modulates. I'm surprised by the way the bridge works, and I also like the way the lyric turned out. So there are lots of
Hmm.
things I like about that one. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
whole thing about you know writing to express how you're feeling about a girl in high school, or writing what used to be called a copyright, meaning a song that might go out and have a life beyond that's not so personal for your emotional moment that it couldn't be
Right.
interpreted. So
Right.
I guess I
Although
was trying to write a copyright.
I see. Okay. Although some of the more personal ones are the ones that end up being the ones that
Yeah,
everyone
you
relates
can't
to.
predict any more than you can predict which kid is going to become a tattoo artist and which one's going to become a brain surgeon. But
Right.
yeah, you're just going to push them out there, and
Yeah.
or maybe they'll do
So I'm curious
both.
because you obviously take music very seriously. What did you think when punk hit and, the Ramones, and it was all very reductive and back to the basics kind of thing. And you'd kind of be studying all this stuff and
Well,
you
I
were kind
mean,
of part of the
I don't
scene.
think there was any concert in high school that was as exciting as when the MC5 played,
Oh
and
man.
they were phenomenal. It was in it was in an arena that held a coliseum that I don't know if it held 20,000 people, and I think there were only 300 of us, and they
Yeah,
played
yeah,
it like they were still playing to all those people, and funny and marvelous and precise, and that was a big game changer. So
that would do
when
it.
I would see the Ramones, I would think, yeah, but I've already kind of seen that.
Yeah.
Um, I was snookered a little bit because I was going up to New York in the mid '70s, and I saw the band Television play, and maybe '75, and made a great leap that all these bands getting press in New York sounded like that. And then when I actually
Right.
moved up there 2 years later, none of those bands sounded like that except for Television. But
Yep.
nevertheless, I had a great time. I mean,
Yeah.
I was glad I moved.
I mean, it was a very diverse scene because Television didn't sound like Talking Heads, didn't sound like Patti Smith, didn't sound like the Ramones. I mean,
Right.
you got to give it credit. It wasn't, everybody. Whereas you can't make the same thing about the British scene. Sex Pistols and the Damned and all had a pretty basic template that they were working from.
I mean, it was a time when the filters came off because people in the rock world realized that you could make vanity records. You could just pay the money and get the records,
Right.
and that had country people knew that, but
Yeah.
rock people didn't really know that. And then once that started happening, and you no longer had to go through the filter of a guy at Columbia who loved Duke Ellington and really didn't care about what you were doing, um, you could put out unfiltered music. So that made it much more varied because, people are varied.
They are indeed. And one of the tracks I enjoyed off your new album, Done With Love, which kind of reminded me a little bit of 10cc.
But I'm done with love. I've never won with love. Now I'm done with love. Come what may. Oh, I'm done with love. I couldn't win your love. Now I'm done with love. Today.
I guess it has this background vocal part in the chorus that might be like that. I was actually,
Right.
I had 4 songs I wanted the Lemon Twigs to sing on, and that was the fourth one, and they were able to do the first 3, but I kind of wrote that part thinking that the
Right.
brothers Michael and Brian would sound great on that. If I was going to talk about that song, I would talk about it in terms of the Hollies or Nick
Uh-huh.
Lowe, Brinsley Schwartz, because I remember thinking that, I think originally I thought, really after I wrote the song, after I was trying to arrange it, I thought, this is kind of like a traveling Wilburys thing where you have, 6 or 7 guys all sitting around in a room doing the same stupid up and down
Right.
guitar
Yep.
thing. And it's a great sound.
Yep. Just throwing out lines that kind of make sense or don't.
Well, no, I mean, Done with Love has a kind of very plodding, strummy
Yeah.
groove to it. That's really all I mean.
Yeah. And there's a nice organ solo in there.
It's a great organ solo. That when I was deciding what to put on the record, I think that was the main reason it ended up on the record. There's a trope, I guess it's not a meme, it's a trope of Mitchell Froom playing air on a G string kind of solo on the Crowded House big hit.
Yep.
And we kind of went there, but this organ solo I think is at least as cool. It's really and it's my keys player on the record, Charles Cleaver, who did that.
Uh-huh. Oh, cool. Yeah. Mitchell Froom. Well, I'm in the middle of Auckland, and Neil Finn's Roundhead studio is on the same block that I'm on. So
Oh,
I can kind
cool.
of see it from my window.
Oh, cool.
I see him walking his dog every once in a while.
What kind of dog?
So it's a little fluffy thing. I don't know.
Oh
much
yeah,
about
that's
dogs,
good. Can't go wrong.
But they did for the most recent Crowded House album, they had like a record release thing and invited us to go see and I figure they're going to play the record, and we'll have some nibbles and stuff. They actually played the whole band was there, including Mitchell, and they played along with the playback while we were like sitting around. It was pretty impressive.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah, fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you worked much with Mitchell?
No. I don't even remember if I've met him. I don't. I've been to. I went
He
to.
seems like a guy that you would get along with.
Yeah, you never can tell. But no, I mean he's great. He has a whole thing. I think with Chad Blake, I believe was Chad Blake
Yeah.
working with him on some of this. But
Yeah, right. But you worked with Alejandro Escovedo, who's a pretty cool guy. What did you do with him?
I produced about half of a record called Bourbonitis Blues, and then I did a record called A Man Under the Influence, which I think is
Right.
well, he was. I played with him last month, and he said that it was still his favorite of his records, and a lot of people like that record, and it's a good record, and it's a much better record because he wouldn't give up on it. We hit a point where I thought we were kind of done, and he kept wanting. He's driving me crazy. I mean, we kept, that guitar solo is not good enough, but he was right, and that's one thing I've learned about producing records. Is sometimes you got to shut up that voice in your head that says you've done everything before, and realize that you haven't, and that the artist is right.
Right. All right. And does that go for mixing as well? Because I know you're kind of that's something that you do quite a bit of, and you're fond of, and have a passion for, right?
You mean that sometimes the artist is right? No.
Mixing records, mixing as opposed to producing.
Well, nowadays, laptops and bedroom recording have really changed what producing is, and budgets are weird.
Yeah.
So I'm hardly doing any producing. I mean, I do a lot of producing after the fact. I'll take. My idea of mixing is maybe writing a string arrangement or getting new background parts or
right.
pointing out things and suggesting edits. And sometimes it's not what is wanted, and I'll shut up. But, great mixers like Bob Clearmountain or Scott Litt, they know the game is you do nothing if you don't need to do anything, but you try to fall in love with it. And then if there's a point 2 minutes in where you're not in love, you got to question what's going on there. So I guess that's my mixing philosophy. I like a lot of kinds of music, and if I'm working on something, I pretty much don't take stuff that I don't like musically. So I get in that state of mind where this is the greatest ever, and that lets me know if I fall out of that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, also you just try to EQ the kick drum and make sure that the vocals cut on. There a lot of it's mechanics.
Right. Gotcha. Because you do something where I think there's a thing on your website you're offering to mix people's stuff, or
I haven't looked at that website in quite a few, I want to say decades. So you're probably right. I gotta go look. Mostly people send me work through friends. It's not, I don't really have a shingle out. I've been caught up with writing my own thing. But I just did a great record, though. It's coming out in the fall, called this group called Bass Battery. It's only a drummer and a bassist, but they're highly accomplished, yet it's not prog,
right.
The bassist is a great singer. The songs are fantastic. And, after about 15 seconds, you forget there are no guitars.
Gotcha.
It's really a good record. So Bass Battery.
I'll have to look for that. Very cool. All right. And what are your plans for your own stuff going forward, as they say these days?
I think I'm pleasantly devoid of many plans. I don't know. I'm going to tour in July.
Cool.
Maybe go to England in October. Maybe play some shows with Autumn Defense in the fall. This summer, I'm also playing with the Big Star Quintet, a few shows, and that's always great. And then I don't know. I mean, there's about a third of an album. We had too many songs for this record, so I'm hoping that while I'm touring, I can finish writing a next record and get going on that.
Very cool. Yeah. You mentioned Big Star. The one when I first moved to New Zealand, which was in the mid '90s, believe it or not, that's when I got to see Alex Chilton. He played in some tiny little club on Queen Street here in Auckland, and I was
great.
It's like, oh my God, how did that happen? So,
cool.
What are your thoughts and what struck you most about him and his talent?
He was great. That year of playing with him was an incredible year. I mean, partially it was. I think he liked having proteges at times. You know, you saw that with Tab Falco. And he knew I was interested in recording, and we'd go up in the recording studio and he'd show me stuff, and amazing stuff. And he had learned from the guys in Memphis, from John Fry and Terry Manning, and he wanted to tell me things, and so it was a gift. I don't know, and playing with him too. You know, he was had a really hard time lying. He was very truthful, and he liked to sing songs that meant something to him. But he had just finished the Big Star third record and hadn't really played those songs, so we were doing all those, you know, Kangaroo and Holocaust, Nighttime, and it was great material because it was very. It would be different every night. So I loved him. I loved playing with him that year. It was great.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 13th Floor's Music Talk series, please be sure to subscribe to the website or to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram and wherever you find your podcasts. There's a whole lot more to discover.